Ethyl hexylacrylate is a chemical used in the production of acrylic polymers and coatings. Exposure to this chemical can cause skin irritation and sensitization, and may cause respiratory irritation if inhaled. Prolonged exposure may cause liver and kidney damage. Occupational exposure is a concern for workers in the chemical and manufacturing industries.
Alright, so isobutylene is a gas that is primarily used in the production of synthetic rubber. Inhalation of this gas can cause irritations of the eyes, nose, and throat. It may cause headaches, dizziness, and nausea, which is very similar to ethylene glycol. Prolonged exposure can and will cause neurological effects. It may affect the respiratory and cardiovascular systems. This is kind of where the headaches kind of play into from the reports of the incident, from the reports from the citizens.
What is a controlled burn? A controlled burn is a technique used in forest management, agriculture, and land conservation to initially set fires under controlled conditions to achieve specific ecological goals. Reducing fuel buildup. In forest management, controlled burns are often used to remove accumulated dead trees, leaves, and other vegetation that can increase the risk of wildfires. By reducing the amount of fuel available of a potential wildfire, a controlled burn can help protect nearby communities and natural resources. Restoring ecological balance. Many ecosystems have evolved with fire as a natural part of their ecological processes. A controlled burn can help restore ecological balances by removing invasive species and encouraging the growth of native plants.
So what is a controlled burn? So part of what a controlled burn does is it does promote biodiversity. It does this by removing plants or clearing the land. A controlled burn can kind of stimulate a new environment and reopen up sunlight to areas where sunlight hasn't been in a while. So for example, if there's like a pine tree that kind of covers the ground with pine so other things can't grow, a controlled burn just kind of come through and wipe that out, and then other plants will be able to grow because the pine tree is not there anymore, and then the pine needles aren't there either. Similarly, redwood trees in California undergo a certain method where they kind of need forest fires to sort of sprout out from the ground, because where it kind of resets the environment and allows for it to kind of grow and sprout, because redwood trees are just absolutely massive and the sun won't be able to come down through the canopies. So this does create new habitats for wildlife, and it does promote biodiversity too. This also does manage agricultural land, so controlled burning is sometimes used in agricultural processes to remove crop residue and improve soil health. In a certain sense, fire does kind of remove any other problems with soil, and it kind of just gives it a way to reset and kind of redo, and then all the broken down nutrients kind of come filtered through. Another thing controlled burns does is it does maintain cultural practices. So in some cultures, controlled burns have been used for a long time as a way to manage the land and promote specific plants or animals. So what that means is that a farmer would pretty much just kind of burn out a certain patch of land and then grow whatever they want there for their animals to feed on, which then could change maybe the taste of the animal, how it kind of functions, stuff like that. And also this is similar to the slash and burn method, which is depicted on the picture to the right.
Ecosystems, East Palestine, Ohio. Forest, the city is surrounded by dense forests of hardwood trees such as oak, maple, and hickory. These forests provide habitat for a variety of wildlife, including deer, squirrels, and songbirds.
So the wetlands of East Palestine is decently similar to what Connecticut would have in a way. So the animals that live in the wetlands, besides the plants, are pretty similar to what we have in Connecticut. These areas host aquatic plants, animals including frogs, turtles, and waterfowl, which we do have. The turtles are slightly different though. The Canadian geese are pretty much the same. They kind of just go down there eventually, or wherever they migrate to. The plants are the most different though, for sure.
streams and rivers. The area is crisscrossed by several streams and rivers, including the Little Beaver Creek and the Ohio River. These waterways provide habitat for fish, amphibians, and other aquatic species.
Alright, so in the farmland, most of the land surrounding East Palestine is used for agriculture. But for the farmland is kind of a habitat in East Palestine just because most of the area is used for agriculture. Crops such as corn, soybeans, and wheat are being grown in this area typically, especially corn. Corn is a huge industry. So these little farms produce sort of a habitat for like small birds and small mammals. And as a result, we kind of get those bigger predators like a kind of fox, something like that, that would kind of come through and eat those guys. And the thing with the farmers is they can't really manage all the land that they have, so it is definitely possible for smaller ecosystems to form within the crops that would go unmonitored for some time.
Total damage. Thousands of animals have died, around 3,500 fish. Thousands of pounds of soil were affected, and a little over 1 million gallons of water in the Ohio River was affected too. However, luckily, the river is so large that the chemicals will get quickly diluted. As of now, citizens are still dealing with the repercussions of the event, such as irritation of eyes and headaches. Also, some citizens still do not feel safe in the place they once called home. In the case of Norfolk Southern, not much has happened, and theorists speculate that this is because BlackRock holds shares in the business and owns a lot of shares in the news world.
It's about an hour north of Pittsburgh, almost halfway to Cleveland. Norfolk Southern has a rail line that goes right through town, and this derailment happened right on the edge outside of town on the border of PA and Ohio. Of the cars that crashed, 5 of them contained vinyl chloride. It's a monomer used to make PVC. The reporting on this has gotten vinyl chloride confused with polyvinyl chloride, the polymer made out of vinyl chloride. Now, the reason that this distinction is really important is vinyl chloride is very hazardous and very flammable. Polyvinyl chloride is a plastic that's used in like everything. The other thing about vinyl chloride is that it boils at 8 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's shipped in its liquid form. Meaning that when these trains crashed and these started leaking, they weren't just leaking liquid, but they were spewing boiling gas. So vinyl chloride is really toxic. OSHA has the permissible limit of how much you can be exposed to it during an 8-hour shift as a 1 ppm part per million. Average over 8 hours. So prior to this, the biggest spill of this chemical was in New Jersey, where 1 train car and about 23,000 gallons of vinyl chloride were spilled, but it didn't catch on fire. Now, this crash in Ohio has 5 train cars. These kinds of tanker cars can carry between 25 and 33,000 gallons. Let's call it 250 to 250,000 pounds of vinyl chloride. That's per train car, 5 train cars. There's maybe 1 million pounds of this toxic chemical spilling into the ground and also boiling off into the air. But then it caught on fire. I think this is where the reporting is really bad because no one is mentioning what the byproduct of vinyl chloride burning is. Of the many byproducts of burning vinyl chloride, one of them is hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen chloride is really unstable and latches onto water, like just water vapor in the atmosphere, and that turns into hydrochloric acid. So right now, government officials from the railroad, both the governor of Pennsylvania and Ohio are calling burning off the 1 million pounds of this stuff a success, but not mentioning that it means that we have hundreds of thousands of pounds of acid in the air, potentially. Now, ever since engineering school, I've studied a lot of industrial accidents. I just find it really fascinating, and organizations like the Chemical Safety Board, NTSB, and OSHA all have like really good reports available to the public. I think as a designer, it's really good to learn about mistakes. When looking at these kinds of industrial disasters across time, there are a couple things that are pretty universal across all of them. 1, the responsible party, in this case, Norfolk Southern Railway, always plays down the reality of the situation. Politicians also just repeat the same lines, and then news outlets just repeat the same. So all we're hearing is the responsible party's word.
Reporters being silenced. A reporter from News Nation, Evan Lambert, was charged with disorderly conduct and criminal trespassing when reporting live, according to Lieutenant Seth Frazier of the Columbiana County Jail in Ohio. Lieutenant Frazier said in a brief interview on Wednesday evening that Mr. Lambert would be held in the jail overnight and arraigned on Thursday morning. However, he was released on Wednesday.
So a similar scenario was, of course, in Flint, Michigan, which did happen in 2014. One of the most well-known issues that Flint has faced in recent years is the water crisis, which due to cost-cutting measures, the city of Flint decided to switch their water source. And what they did was they switched the water source from Lake Huron to the Flint River, which was just way too high in certain metals. Specifically, lead and other contaminants were mainly in the water. So this did lead to widespread health problems and there's kind of a mistrust in the government, which was very similar to what happened in East Palestine, Ohio with the water problem.
Since then, Flint has undergone various efforts to improve its infrastructure and community, but there is still much work to be done. The city continues to face challenges related to poverty, education, and public health, but there seems to be a lack of effort and change.
So one of the solutions is regular maintenance and inspection. So ensuring that trains and tracks are properly maintained and inspected can prevent mechanical failures and other issues that can lead to derailments. So regular inspections on these rail cars and equipment, as well as track and surrounding area, can identify potential problems, which would allow us to intervene before anything bad happens. So for example, like the Lac-Mégantic before, if they did do more inspections, they would have seen the kind of faulty measures within the equipment and the braking system, which could have ultimately resulted in that incident never occurring.
Solutions are risk assessment and planning. Conducting risk assessments and developing emergency responses plans can help minimize the impact of a derailment on the environment. These plans should include measures for containing and cleaning up spills as well as minimizing damage to surrounding ecosystems and habitats.
The solution is a use for safer transportation methods. So if whenever possible, using a safer transportation option such as pipelines or trucking or hazardous materials can reduce the risk of a derailment and subsequent environmental damage. So what this means is that pipelines is kind of sending things through pipes, and then trucking is exactly what it sounds like in a way. It's just shipping things through trucks. So if the truck was to get damaged, it would result in less mass being destroyed, which would minimize the environmental impact pretty much. But in a way though, trucking is more likely to get into an accident on the road than a train is to derail.
Improved train design. The design of trains can be improved to reduce the likelihood of derailment and minimize environmental impact if a derailment does occur. For example, trains can be designed with stronger couplers and more secure tie-downs to prevent rail cars from being separated during a derailment.
So another solution that we have is quick response and effective cleanup. Now, we did see a pretty effective cleanup in East Palestine, Ohio, and a very quick response to. In the event of a train derailment, it is critical to respond quickly and effectively to contain and clean up any spills. Having well-trained emergency responders and equipment on hand can help minimize the impact on the environment. So pretty much what that means is that the fastest that you can get there, the less likely a kind of a chain reaction of events is to sort of happen. So pretty much in East Palestine's case, the faster you get there, the faster you could clean up the soil, maybe less soil gets damaged, maybe less water gets polluted, and as a result, maybe you can clean up the town faster so people can get their lives back to normal too, and then get rid of the headaches faster, all the dizziness, the nausea.
Potential hazards. Damage to infrastructure and property. Train derailments can cause significant damage to rail lines, bridges, and other infrastructure, as well as nearby buildings, vehicles, and other property. The cost of repairing or replacing damaged infrastructure can be substantial. Economic disruption. Train derailments can disrupt transportation and supply chains, causing delays and increased costs for business and consumers. This can have ripple effects throughout the economy.